After watching the most recent episode of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind, I was compelled to make this video as the whole comment section and myself were kind of ashamed of Steven Crowder in this video. Typically, I quite like this series. You know, it's fun laughing at SJWs. And this is what this is. This isn't what he prefaces it as being a, debate, change my mind. It isn't that. He wants to set up a trap. He leads the conversation and makes them follow into a place where he can make him look like an idiot, which is, it's funny, but I'm starting to get less and less interested in it because it's just predictable, and he doesn't really go against people who are intellectual. He gets people who are emotional. The whole show is that. He puts out a big statement that he knows is going to offend people, and then emotional people are going to come forward and debate it. You're not going to get a sane person come up and debate. You're only going to get the emotional SJWs. So let's get into it. So this cracks me up. He's just walking in looking like a celebrity. Yeah, everyone's cheering his name. It's funny. It's kind of like a perfect setup for what's about to happen.
What is this? All right. Hey, I saw you on the Twitter. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Good? Show it
This
to the
bit's
crowd.
funny as hell.
Of course,
This is so
anyone is
American.
welcome. It is so... Show these people.
Don't get me wrong, when I first watched this I was quite, oh yeah, it's cool, everyone's getting gassed about politics, but it's just,
All right,
it's just
first
quite
off, I
funny.
can't
Very
see while I'm in
American.
here. Is there anyone out there who disagrees and would like to change my mind on the idea that's the premise that
change your
socialism
mind.
is evil? Everyone here, by the way, I know how high energy you are, but make sure you give respect to anyone who sits down and disagrees and give them the chance to make their argument.
That sounds great, doesn't it? That sounds good, doesn't it? Let them have a chance to make their argument. Key words here that we'll remember, and we'll see if he follows through on that.
But hopefully we can be productive. Okay, Jared, who do we want?
So this is kind of funny. He fucks up with two of the
First
first guests and then
broadcast it
kicks them
live. A
both
lot
off.
of people say, well, we think maybe you edit it or hand-pick opponents. Hey, wait, that means you're a fan. You can't come up here. No.
I still have thoughts.
No, you still have
So I think it's a
no,
bit
get out of
harsh.
here. We have to have someone who actually disagrees. You can't
But it's
be a
it's
fan.
whatever. But I mean,
Who
like,
here actually
just it's a
disagrees
bad
with me?
setup to
I appreciate it, brother.
the show.
It's not. It is evil. This guy seems to be really
Okay,
evil.
so here he goes.
Because
This
we
is
only
the
have
man.
one officer who showed up, because that's all you need for a crowd like this.
Okay.
All right,
so,
what is your name, sir?
Yusef.
Yusef, nice to meet you. Steven. So I believe, let me explain my position. I believe that socialism is fundamentally evil. And I have this here. We usually don't reference this, but it's sources in case someone wants to look at them afterward, but I don't think I won't use it. It's not fair for me to use it.
It's not fair, is it? Okay. Okay. So he just pulls out a binder and says, "Well, it's not fair that I use it." He's obviously read the binder. He obviously has memorized the info, but this doesn't really matter. It's the fact that he's just said this, right? And just keep it in mind because at the end he essentially refers back to the binder and starts selling the binder, and it's just a bit silly. But anyway, my point is he's obviously loaded up on knowledge to be able to win these debates. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just showing the kind of angle that he's coming from, which is, I'm ready to own you in this debate. He's not trying to have his mind changed. He wants to make a person look like an idiot.
In case someone wants to look at them afterward, but I don't think I won't use it. It's not fair for me to use them. So I believe socialism is evil. Right. You disagree. I would love to hear you change my mind.
Okay, well, what's your position on the minimum wage?
Well, hold on a second. Is this your changing my mind? I want to make sure.
Yes, I want to get started.
Okay,
right,
my
no
position on the minimum
response.
wage. Yeah, you know what? I'm not a fan.
So you think there shouldn't be any minimum wage at all?
Yeah,
Should
not a
be
fan.
zero.
Not a fan.
Okay, are you against illegal immigration and legal immigration from poor third world countries at the scale that we've been having it so far?
Am I against illegal immigration? The answer is, what was that? Volume. Well, we're going to do everything we can. Like we said, this is last minute because we're not necessarily friendly here. I'm against, no, I mean, they don't consider us friendly. So like I said, we appreciate you supporting us. Of course I'm against illegal immigration. But again, socialism, I believe the idea of socialism, let's do this before we go on, okay?
Right.
Because this is something, and I think this is important, this is something that we often see from both the right and the left. See, we started with the premise where I made a statement, socialism is evil.
Right.
And you've moved on to different questions, different topics. So I'd like to first, before we move on, if it's okay, let's define socialism.
Okay.
How do you define socialism? So I know that we're agreeing on that premise.
Okay, so Steven is a comedian. He knows how to handle hecklers. He knows how to handle debates to come out on top. Doesn't mean he's the more intellectual one. Doesn't mean he's more thought out. He just knows how to handle it. The guy, Yusef, has come on and he's started. He's like, well, I've got my points and I know how I'm going to lead this conversation. He wanted to lead the conversation. Steven was obviously afraid of that. He doesn't want someone to lead the conversation because then he can't pull it in directions and take it where he needs to take it in order to come out on top. It's pretty standard debating tactics. So yeah, he kind of just, Yusef was going to use those two questions to lead on to his justification as to why socialism isn't evil, in his point of view. Stephen doesn't let him do that. He goes, no, well, let's define socialism, let's derail so I can get back in control in this debate.
Socialism is a system in which the state redistributes wealth from what it would be under a pure capitalist system.
Okay, I think we agree on that. Okay, and then I think it's important to, but don't boo. This is just an actual discussion. I might be wrong here. And what do you think I mean by evil, or what would we both agree the definition of evil is?
Harmful to society.
Not necessarily to society. I believe morally reprehensible. It's immoral. Okay, so as we both agreed, socialism is basically a collective, a governmental control of the distribution or means of distribution or production. And when I say evil, I mean I believe that is immoral. So can we both agree with that?
I don't agree that it's evil.
No, but we agree.
So see this, right? He's reframing the argument. He's putting it all onto him questioning Yusef. Yusef wanted to argue. He went, no, that isn't the point.
Well, I'm trying to convince you that your own objectives, if you're a conservative, cannot be achieved under capitalism.
Okay.
And so I'll give you an example of that.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Republicans like Paul Ryan who are obstructing Donald Trump. Well, hold on. You cannot deny that he is a big capitalist, and he has lots of capitalist donors that would like nothing more than to increase their profits. I think you can agree with that. And people like that have been opposing immigration reform for decades because they believe that mass immigration will lower the wages of the working class and increase their profits.
Now, I would say a lot of what you just said is correct.
Okay.
In that many conservatives, Republicans believe that mass immigration from countries like, say, Mexico, from quote-unquote third world countries, could lower the wages. Yeah, I do believe that a lot of Republicans believe that. Okay, so I would agree with you on that.
So if you impose a minimum wage, you're not going to have this mass immigration coming in because the companies that are taking these illegal immigrants and taking these low-wage immigrants, if they had to pay them $15 an hour, we wouldn't have mass immigration like we're having right now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that I agree with that premise. So let me kind of go, because first off, before I would like to take that, hold it.
Take that and hold it, okay. I think right there, so in my opinion, as I say, I'm not a socialist. I don't know if I agree with Yusef, but he's starting a good point. He's making a good point. I want to hear that out. But no, Stephen Crowder is now going, no, okay, let's put a pin in that. Let's readdress that, which, if I remember rightly, I don't think he does readdress that point. But that's a solid point, you know, it makes sense. I don't know if it's necessarily on the argument of socialism is evil, but it's a good point, and this is the kind of debate, and maybe he was going to lead into something. But no, obviously Stephen Crowder wants to reframe the conversation so that he's in control, so that he puts a pin in it, says, yeah, we'll readdress it, but let me take charge, right?
Hold it. What example will we point to before we go on? Because I know a lot of times we disagree, of a successful socialist country.
Well, there are different kinds of socialism. I think you're thinking of the Soviet Union and Venezuela when you say these are unsuccessful countries. But you also have Sweden, you have Norway, you have Finland, you have Denmark, you have Germany.
Sure.
These are countries that have robust economies and high levels of socialization.
Right. What's their minimum wage?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
What if I told you that they have no minimum wage?
There are plenty of countries that have...
So really, I'm not trying to get too much into the debate, but I believe this was kind of debunked because I think those countries work on some kind of like union minimum wage type thing. But regardless, it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to point out Stephen's not being 100% honest.
I know, but we didn't talk about them. We talked about a successful socialist economies. Now, first off, I think it's interesting. This is important because we need to define the premise. First off, we're away from the premise, which is the moral argument. I believe socialism is immoral. The redistribution of something that you have not earned, I believe, is fundamentally immoral. I believe that's theft.
Are you an anarchist?
Hold on a second. Then we'll go in. So now we moved on from that to the pragmatic.
So he doesn't want Yusef to make a point.
And then you brought up successful examples in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I believe.
Yeah.
First off, these aren't socialist countries. Now, the reason we would point to countries like, say, Venezuela or Cuba, for the same reason Bernie Sanders did for decades, is because they're true examples of socialism. The Danish Prime Minister said, Bernie, stop referring to us as a socialist economy. We're a free market economy. They don't have a minimum wage as we know it. They only allow collective bargaining between unions, higher skilled unions, and those who are employers. So these are countries, by the way, if we want to get into their immigration laws, the only way to make it work, if you refer to those countries, I mean, I guess I would have to ask, it sounds almost as though you're making an argument. Are you a nationalist?
I would say I'm an economic nationalist.
You are an economic nationalist?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So you part ways with a lot of probably your more left-leaning brethren.
I never said I was a liberal.
Okay, so you're a conservative socialist. They're hard to come by.
So this, to me, is like case in point. He wants to try and put him as, in his head, he thinks anyone who doesn't believe socialism is evil is an SJW. So he's trying to paint him in this box. He's like trying to say, you should think this way, you should be a liberal. No, Yusef has his own opinions that he's come to from, thought. He might be wrong, he might be right, but he's come to by thinking about. But no, Steven Crowder wants to put him in a box so they can win.
So no minimum wage there. But again, this doesn't change the idea. Let's get to the fundamental premise.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the pragmatic, and I'd be happy to. But I believe that socialism, the ism that we both agreed upon,
Yeah.
the collective means, seizing of distribution, production, is immoral.
I mean, the argument is absurd, because if you say that it's immoral, then you also have to say that government funding of police is immoral, government funding of the military is immoral. Anything the government does is immoral, and that's ridiculous, because you have to have some state that's going to socialize certain things. And so the question is not, do we have socialization, it's how much.
Sure.
Just to jump in with a point here, this is important for later in the video. Notice Yusef's eye contact, or lack of eye contact. He looks away a lot. Just keep it in mind, because it's something that Stephen says later.
I would disagree with that. Now, would you know where I disagree with that? Guess what I'm going to say.
I assume you're going to try to argue that government funding of the military and police is not socialism.
Why would I say that?
Well, because if you don't argue that, then you're going to have to give some ground on socialism.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. If I have to concede that police force, as he's saying, police force, military, roads is socialism, the same as healthcare, education, and I'm assuming that's why you're referring to Denmark and Sweden. They're not socialist economies, but they have more of a social safety net. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, they're social democracy.
One more point here is note Steven Crowder's body language and how he gesticulates and he leans forward into Yusef. Yusef is sitting back, not making the strongest eye contact, but he's fairly relaxed and chilled, whereas Steven has taken a very aggressive stance. I'm not being like emotional or whatever, I'm just making a point on the debate and Steven Crowder's debate style, which is to make someone else look like an idiot, and it isn't to try and have a conversation about something.
Yeah, they're social democracies.
They're market economies with higher emphasis on a social safety net. That's how they describe
That's
it.
what a social democracy is.
So okay, we agree on the term. Let's go with social democracy. I just want to make sure we don't get confused like democratic socialism as though that changes anything. But we just talked about this, conceding that ground.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the military and the police force would be the same as socialized healthcare school.
Why not?
Sorry, because we only have one microphone. We had to do a late setup. I appreciate you working with me.
Well, I mean...
Why not? Why not was your question.
Our definition was that...
So why not?
Yeah.
More case in point of Steven Crowder. So Yusef said why not, realised obviously, he's going to have a counter, because this is how he's framing the argument, which is, I say something, you respond how I want you to respond, then I jump in my information. Yusef realised that, he wanted to make more of a point, Steven Crowder cut him off and then jumped in with his point.
Okay, so I want to make sure you don't... why not?
Which I would consider rude, by the way, just to bear in mind for what he says later.
Can you explain to me the difference between public goods and a commodity?
Well, in economics, a public good is a good that is, I believe, non-excludable and non-rivalrous. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that would include things like the police, the military. You'd be hard-pressed to even find hardcore libertarians to say that we don't need those. So there's a big difference. There's a fundamental difference between that and something like healthcare or school.
It's still
Or it goes to free internet, as Sven Computer talked about in Germany now. High-speed internet is a right. The second you declare any commodity to be a right, or to be a fundamental role of government, that means the government can now remove that right depending on who's in power, and that's the problem. That's why I think it's fundamentally immoral for someone to take something they haven't earned, regardless of who's in power. I think it's immoral for Donald Trump's administration to take it from you, just as you probably think it's immoral for Barack Obama's administration to take it from me. So the difference there would be, first, public goods versus commodity. And I think that's an important distinction for everyone here to make, because it's a common argument we hear from the left. If you support any role of government at all, that means that this is socialism. But it's not, according to the definition that we agreed upon. Something else, I think it also matters the constitutional parameters of government, right? What the Constitution defines what our government is and what fundamental human rights.
So right there, so you saw Yusef shake his head. He wants to say something about this, and then Steven Crowder's just jumped straight into the next point. He's quickly making it look like he won that point. So I don't know. I kind of agree with what Steven Crowder said mostly there. But I wanted to hear what Yusef had to say. This is meant to be a debate where we're all meant to learn more about the topic and see each other's ideas, quote unquote, change my mind. But no, we rather get Steven Crowder leading the conversation, taking it where he needs it to go.
Well, I want to get back to your earlier point where you said that because the military is a public good, that therefore it's not socialism. In your definition, you never made any distinction between different types of goods. You just said a socialist economy is one that takes wealth from some people and gives it to others, and that's what financing a public good is.
Well, no, it's not. You talked about redistributing. The redistribution the common means of production or distribution. So if we want to frame that in, I certainly wouldn't say that that's the police. Oh, someone's yelling. Hopefully we're good. So I would not agree with you that the military or police would be socialist. But to move on here, again, let's go to Dane.
Again, to move on here, I don't want you to keep talking about this because you might have a point that I can't beat.
Examples of socialism, because that would be different from your definition of socialism. So now I moved on from the idea that taking something you haven't earned to give to someone else is morally reprehensible, regardless of the reason, because socialism can only be enacted through the threat of violence. That's really what taxes are. At the end of the day, we all agree on that.
Violence is part of life.
Okay, well, I don't believe there should be a part of life for someone with guns to come in if I don't pay for Timmy's health care. I just disagree with that.
If you don't pay taxes, you're going to have other forms of violence that arise spontaneously. This sort of autistic libertarian idea of, oh, you can have a non-aggression.
Stop it! He's been watching Matt Damon videos. Continue.
This idea of a non-aggression principle is just fantasy. Okay, you have to have.
Describe to me. You just said autistic, and this was very civil until you brought that up. Define autistic here.
So this is just so annoying because Yusef is making a point. He made a bigger point here. Steven Crowder has gone in on one word that he said, which was autistic. He didn't like his use of the word autistic, which is kind of what SJWs do. They dislike certain words and they care about the word rather than what the conversation is about. Like, he's just being a snowflake. Like, you'll see this later, but he's just being touchy.
Well, it tends to be characterized by an over.
I know this is a joke, but this isn't far off what he's doing anyway, which is just being ridiculous with his body language in order to seem more confident and in control.
Emphasis on logic and philosophy as opposed to reality. You know, it's very easy to argue from syllogisms and axioms and all that.
So hold on a second, I want to make sure, before you move, because what you do is you speak in these paragraphs. We need to determine what these definitions are. I think we both agree that's fair.
So that's just fucking stupid. So what he's doing here is trying to make him look like an idiot. He's saying he talks in paragraphs. Literally, Steven Crowder will go on like a 2-minute rant and then give him the mic for 10 seconds. As soon as he starts using words that are too big for Steven Crowder's brain, he implodes and then just goes, oh, hang on a second, hang on. You're using all these big words, but let me just get back to my point.
Okay. So you just said that autism, if I'm not mistaken, and I would love for you to bring this up, is rooted more in philosophy and theology than facts? Than logic or reason?
Logic, syllogisms, that sort of thing.
That's what you believe is the definition of autism?
Well, because it leads you down these intellectual...
No, do you believe that's the definition of autism?
No,
no, you
I'm
don't.
using it in an informal way.
Okay.
I mean, for fuck's sake, surely he can see that. Surely he knows he's just using it as a word and he doesn't mean it. Like, how fucking pedantic can you be? He's trying to divert off of the conversation and score a point, making him look stupid, which is retarded.
Okay, so you're using it in an insulting way.
You could say that.
Okay.
A little bit of banter.
A little bit of... Yeah,
Can't insult Steven Crowder.
We don't call that banter generally.
Okay.
We call that being a dick.
I mean, like, just that smug lean back and like, well, I'd say that's you being a dick. Like, come on, man. Fucking grow up.
So I want to go back to hopefully keeping it civil. You know, I wouldn't call you retarded. You know, I wouldn't say that you had a fight with the Clippers and the Clippers won. I wouldn't do this.
The classic Leafy is here. Oh, I wouldn't say he's a fucking retard. I mean, come on.
Let's keep this very civil. So let's go back to Sweden, Denmark, Norway as examples. You pointed to them as successful examples of socialism. It was interesting to me that you said, I know you'd want to point to the USSR or Venezuela or these places, but really we should look to these Scandinavian countries.
Sure.
Why?
Because they provide a good quality of life for their citizens. You don't have this gigantic gap between the working class and the upper class. There is a commitment of the state to the well-being of their citizens, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Okay. So first off, I agree with you that first off, the overall well-being of citizens is a tremendous thing. I think we would all want, I think everyone here wants a better society, wants a better America. I don't think that you want a worse America. No. I hope that you don't believe I want a worse America, despite the fact that you implied I might be autistic. So maybe I don't know what's best for America. You know, autistic and such.
Yeah, I bombed a little.
Keep your hate speech off this campus. But your reasoning there, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said there isn't the same kind of gap, the inequality gap. That was your, I want to get, because you speak in, like I said, in longer paragraphs.
Which is exactly not what Steven Crowder's doing right here.
It seems the fundamental premise there was Denmark, Norway, Sweden, they're examples because they're successful. They have a higher quality of living, and the main purpose, the main justification used was there's less of an inequality gap. Am I correct? I don't want to misrepresent you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, again, this is how he does arguments. He says something, keeps saying stuff, and then goes, is that correct? Is what I'm saying your opinion is correct? And then they go, yeah, and then he'll just pull the mic from them and go, okay, now back to my grand conclusion of your whole mindset, because you haven't given him a chance to talk about anything.
So your problem is with inequality.
It's one of several problems. I think another problem when
But that was your first issue. Let's go point by point. Okay.
Fair enough.
Inequality.
Again, as soon as Stephen can't keep complete tyrannical control of the conversation, he has to go, no, don't keep speaking. Let me do what I'm doing here.
What's immoral about inequality?
Because there's this idea that you're going to have this society and everybody has social obligations. But if you have a situation where people are being crushed, where people's wages are going down, you lose the social cohesiveness of that society. You lose the commitment that everybody has to advancing that society.
Hold on a second. I want to, because now you're getting into potential results. The hypothetical, almost autistic one could say.
Oh, fucking hell, man. Like, this is just... Do I need to keep making these points? You're getting it, right? Yusef wants to talk, tries to make a point. Clearly an educated person. He's not an idiot. He's not just one of these random SJWs that's gone, oh, I'm so offended, and then ran up to try and, make Stephen Crowder look like a Nazi. He's not doing that. He's debating. He's trying to change his mind, but he's not up for it. Stephen Crowder's just... Oh, my God, he's a fucking spastic. Sorry, but he is.
I ask again, what is immoral about inequality?
What's immoral is that it ruins the society. That's what's immoral about it.
How does inequality ruin society? Because it sounds to me, if I'm not mistaken, what you just went down and described was a problem with poverty.
Yeah.
So your problem is with poverty then?
But poverty is a consequence of inequality.
That's not necessarily true. But, and as a matter of fact, I would argue that there are two very different things. Because I would say, and I think we'd probably have to agree, that the free enterprise, westernized capitalist system has pulled more people out of poverty than any system in existence. And if you look at countries, you said don't point to countries like Venezuela or true socialist economies, there's tremendous equality, but everyone is equally poor. So the problem you have is with poverty, it sounds like, and I think we would both have a problem with that we want to solve ways to eliminate as much poverty as possible.
It's not just poverty. Inequality matters too, because if you have inequality of wealth, you're going to have an upper class that controls the political system and secures its own interests instead of the interests of the people. Okay. So yes, inequality matters as well.
Okay. So describe to me, and I'd like to go back to that, examples of this, the upper ruling class determining the political system.
You want examples of that?
I would like some examples of that.
Sure.
Because I believe, so for example, let's say, you mentioned that inequality hurts people. I would argue no, and I think that's because, again, this is more of a leftist view. I know you said you're not really liberal, but I can tell you by your worldview in economics that you do lean more left because you're seeing it as a zero-sum.
So, yeah, he's tried to ask him a question. Yusef about to answer. No, he's just going, no, what you think is this. What I'm telling you, you think, that's how you think. But actually, what is the right way is how I think, and everyone can listen to me whilst I talk. But you're the one who talks in long paragraphs. Stop doing that.
Wealthy people can't get wealthy off of the backs of poor people if they make them more poor. That's kind of, if we're going to talk about motives and attributing motives, that you've done a couple of times here. If I believe if I want everyone to be wealthy, I would necessarily, if I need a system of government that would want people to be wealthy, would require people to be wealthy. For someone who would want to control a system of government like in socialist economies, who would want to consistently talk or gain the votes of the poor, they could only be elected if people are poor. Bernie Sanders is not going to be elected by a rich country.
We're not trying to make everybody rich. That's not possible. We're trying to create a fair distribution of wealth. But I want to get back to your earlier question about how are the wealthy controlling the political system.
So let's an example of that. I don't believe that inequality
literally, Yusef is saying, well, can I answer the question you just sort of brushed over a second ago that I had a point to make on? And then Stephen goes, oh, yeah, well, I
don't believe it's a zero-sum game. For example, Tim Cook, and I don't like Tim Cook, by the way. Apple people, Android, they're going to start yelling. Tim Cook creating a better iPhone, even though the iPhone 10 kind of sucks. Yeah. Thank you. That's where we get the passion. That doesn't hurt me. Him making billions of dollars from that doesn't hurt me. Poverty, bread lines, $160 for a dozen eggs. That hurts me. I have a problem with poverty. I don't care if someone else has more than me, so long as I have a system where I'm able to do okay.
Do you understand that it's the upper class and the capitalists that want mass immigration and want illegal immigration because it's in their economic self-interest? If you're a Republican and you're with the capitalists, you're going against your own interests. The capitalists are not conservative. They're not.
Well, hold on a second. We're talking about capitalists, conservative, Republican here. So you're saying that capitalism, we're talking about the ism now, socialism versus capitalism. Yeah. I don't care what Paul Ryan does in his own time. I don't care what his front page news press is doing P90X and what he thinks about immigration. I couldn't care less.
So what
I don't believe in it. I don't believe. It seems that you would agree in securing the borders. It seems that you would agree in stricter immigration laws.
I would, and it's not. You're not going to get it if you shill for the capitalists.
Well,
they're against you.
Define shill.
So this is just. getting tedious now, but essentially, he's making a fucking fair point. You're not going to get this by shilling for capitalists. That is a fair point. And see how Stephen reacts right now. The word shill, apparently, has made him cry. Like, grow up. Jesus Christ.
Well, if you're
I know you like to sound really intelligent by speaking in paragraphs. You've misused words several times. And if someone were to call you on it and be as rude as you are,
rude. Like, how is he being rude? Look who's gesticulating, getting right in his grill, and fucking saying, oh, he talks in paragraphs, does all this. He's literally sitting back and making a solid argument, and he's used 2 words that I wouldn't have even, if someone said that to me, I wouldn't even remotely been offended by. And like, you are getting all worked up. Like a proper SJW, you are being worked up over a word.
Referred to as stupid. Okay. So saying autistic or shill, define, because it's a very specific definition.
Really? The fact that he remembers it, he's really taking that autistic dig to heart. Like, because bear in mind, when he said the autistic thing, he wasn't talking about Stephen Crowder. He was talking about libertarianism. So he wasn't talking at Stephen Crowder, but Stephen Crowder's heard that as him being called autistic, and now he's so offended. Like, surely you would have forgotten about that by now. But no, he's brought it back up because it really affected Stephen Crowder. Maybe he's slightly autistic. I'm hoping he doesn't see this and try and ban me for hate speech.
Chill. And I'm really quickly get ready to give the microphone to someone else if you don't stop doing this.
Oh,
that's the goal of this. What's a shill?
Well, I think you're getting upset because you're losing the debate. But
oh!
That's fair. What's a shill?
Oh, I smashed him.
No. The person losing the debate is the one who refers to the other person as autistic and a shill. That's generally a good sign.
I would say the person who's offended by autistic or shill is the one losing the debate.
So what's a shill?
I don't have the exact definition, but essentially someone who's, I guess, pushing or advancing somebody else's interests, I suppose.
For profit.
Fair enough. But a lot of these conservatives who...
Well, you're not talking to these conservatives, you're talking to me. This isn't a performance hall here. That's why we're doing this out here. This is a conversation. You're talking to me. I just said that I'm against illegal immigration.
Is that what this is? This is a conversation where they're talking about an idea. I could have been fooled.
Illegal immigration. It's okay. You can look me in the eyes. I'm not mad at you. I just think it's rude. It's okay. Don't worry. I mean, we're okay. I'm used to people being rude to me. I'm sure you're probably aware of it.
So he's literally, so as I said, Yusef doesn't keep the best eye contact. He's been hurt by this. He's now trying to play the victimhood. Oh, you know, I'm used to people being offended at me. I know he's being a bit jokey, but like, he's being a victim. And he's trying to score little points about Yusef's eye contact, which has been a thing the whole video. And he's just getting personal rather than actually talk about the debate. This isn't a debate. This is Stephen Crowder trying to appear intellectual. That's literally all this is. And make other people look dumb. And once someone doesn't fit his box of being dumb, well, you'll see what happened in a minute.
Another. Let's move back to, again, Norway, Sweden. We didn't really kind of go to that. You've talked about them as successful examples. Now, we refer to them, and I would agree. I would agree that if we're going to take a model and say they've created a social safety net that functions better than many other countries, for example, socialized healthcare and education.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Good. Well, like, so you would support school vouchers?
I think, you know, in general, vouchers, I think, have a problem because they do lead to the incentivization of private schools. But okay. Any way that the government
I just say because that's what Sweden does.
Yes.
So you would support more of a flat tax and increasing taxes on the middle class and the lower class.
I want a progressive tax.
Okay, well, that's not what happens in Denmark.
Funnily enough, he's not debating Denmark. He's debating Yusef, who has his own opinions. That's what I think even earlier Stephen Crowder went, well, you're not talking about conservatives, you're talking to me, you're talking to Stephen.
They should change it.
Okay, so you would want a lower corporate tax rate?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so here's the one thing. We point to, and I appreciate you taking, what was your name again?
Yusef.
Yusef, I appreciate Yusef taking the time. Everyone give a hand to Yusef. Appreciate it very much. We'll grab someone else here. Thank you, Yusef. This is always interesting to me because we talk about this a lot, and I know, and if we look here, just so, I think we've talked about
the fucking binder that he originally said he's not going to refer to because that wouldn't be fair. He's pulled out the binder, and then he goes into a little sales pitch for the binder that you can all buy so you can school SJWs. This is literally just so retarded.
$5 or $6. I'm not looking for New York. We're going to be selling the Change My Mind pamphlet so that you guys can actually be prepared for something.
I've given up here. He doesn't really make... to be honest, I stopped watching at this point because I wanted to hear a debate between two people. I didn't want to hear Stephen Crowder trying to look like an intellectual. I just wanted to hear this debate. And to be honest, I hadn't really given socialism a proper look into. I mean, obviously I knew the basics. I used to be very left-wing, but this was kind of an ignorant left-wing without really looking into it. So I've not really gone back and looked at it properly. I've just assumed it was evil, and that was, you know, I agreed with him at the beginning of this video. And then someone come along who was making good points. I would have liked to have heard the points. I would have liked to have seen where that debate might have gone had it not been with Steven Crowder, with someone who could have actually, you know, talked about it. Like, there are plenty good conservative people. I watch so many of them. There's so many that are patient and can actually talk, but Steven Crowder isn't one of them. He's jumping on the back of profiting off of SJWs, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I love taking the piss out of him. It's fucking hilarious. But, you know, don't disguise it as change my mind. Like, you're just trying to make a little trap where you can find some idiots who don't really know much but are emotional when they read the title, so that you can make them look dumb. And you look like a fucking idiot in this. The whole comment section agreed. Steven looked like a twat. I would like to see Yusef really talk about this and actually debate someone who can really have a debate. That would be cool, but I don't see that happening. If Yusef has an Instagram or a YouTube, I'd love to see that, so if someone can comment that. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. I'm kind of pissed off. I'm going to go outside and feel better. I've been really, really hurt by this. Now I'm playing. I'm just, yeah, it's bewildering how Steven thinks. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell. I've only just started this channel. I'll go into an explanation why I'm called the Soy Boy some point soon. But yeah, peace.